How you all doing? I'm going to do a video about my Sega Saturn and the games I have for, and I'm going to give my opinion on the Sega Saturn and the games I have. Now, this is going to take a while, so this is probably 2 or 3 parts, because I have something like 70 games, and I have like 5 Sega Saturns, because that's how much I love the Sega Saturn. Bottom line, would highly recommend getting a Sega Saturn. It's an awesome console, awesome games in my opinion. You know what I mean? So first I'm gonna go over the system. You know. Now, look, I said the Sega Saturn. I have 5 of these because I love it that much. You know, and this is the Japanese Sega Saturn. It's white and it has cool. It has a cool logo there, as you can see. You know, so the Sega Saturn is it's a 32-bit CD-ROM based console made by Sega, and it's awesome. It really is. The Sega Saturn has awesome games. It has awesome features. For a console that is a failure. It failed big time. It was going up against the Sony PlayStation and the N64, and it just failed. You know, for a bunch of reasons, you know, which I'll get into now in a second. But right now, I'm just going to go over the actual console itself. Like I said, I have 5 of these. This is the Japanese Sega Saturn. This came out 90. Actually, the Sega Saturn came out in Japan first, 1994, and then it got released everywhere else 95 onwards. So this one here was late 94. There's actually four Japanese versions of the Sega Saturn. You know, there's the white one here. You know, that has the grey oval buttons and an orange open button. There's a grey version. You know, there's a JVC version and a Hitachi version. Now I have a JVC Model 1 Japanese Sega Saturn. That's really rare and really expensive, but I wanted to get it because I'm a huge Sega Saturn fan. And the Hitachi Sega Saturn is even rarer and it's even more expensive. And I just can't afford that. Like, I've checked eBay, and the cheapest Hitachi Sega Saturn I've found so far is €450. So 5 is enough for me. Like, you know, I will get at some stage if the price comes down a bit. But the Hitachi Sega Saturn and the JVC Sega Saturn, the reason why they made their own versions of the Sega Saturn, because JVC helped with the laser in the Sega Saturn that reads the discs. So Sega gave JVC permission to make their own version of the Saturn, and Hitachi supplied the central CPUs and the chips. So Sega said, yeah, you can make your own version of the Sega Saturn. Now, they all work the same, you know, they all just look a bit different, with different paint jobs and different lettering. But in my opinion, the white one here looks the best. It looks the most stylish with the lettering and everything else, like, you know. So yeah, the Sega Saturn has 2 controller parts on the front. That's a power button, open button, and a reset button. And when you turn it on, that little thing lights up green, you know. And has a window so you can see the CD spinning on the inside, you know. Now, this cartridge part here is for memory cartridges, and certain games like certain fighting games like King of Fighters 95, they need extra RAM to run. So King of Fighters and Street Fighter 2 and other games came with RAM cartridges with the games. So you put the RAM cartridge would be like 4 megabytes or 8 megabytes, which seems silly today, but back then the games needed that extra RAM to run because the sprites were so big and everything. So these RAM cartridges came with these games like King of Fighters 95, Street Fighter and that. But yeah, and also standard Sega Saturn memory cartridges. My advice is, if you are going to get a Sega Saturn, get a memory cartridge. You know what I mean? It's essential. because the Sega Saturn has a built-in memory, you know what I mean, but it's not that much, and it's powered by a watch battery. You see that little door there, right? You know, this little door just comes off really easily. You know, in that, see that little watch battery? That's what powers the internal memory. But that dies in less than a year, and if it dies, all your save data for all your games go. So it's essential to get a memory cartridge for the Sega Saturn, you know, because there are a lot of great games, and you're gonna need space to save your data. But not only does it for internal memory, the Sega Saturn supports VCDs, video CDs, which is an early form of DVD. Now in Japan that really took off, but not really over here, because over here in Ireland we had VHS and video recorders, but in Japan it was mainly VCDs. Now it was awesome that the Sega Saturn could play music, you know, and you could play music CDs. It had a lot of features that just didn't take off because it was a failure, you know. I'll get into that now in a minute. Of why exactly it failed, but yeah, the VCD decoder, it's like a little cartridge that fit in there. See where the watch battery is on top of that? It'll slot in there, like, you know. But not only that, right, but the Sega Saturn could go online. For back in 1995, that was unheard of. No other console back then that I know of could go online and play online games, but with the Sega Saturn you could. In the cartridge part there was a thing called a Sega Netlink that would allow you to go online and play online games and check emails and stuff like that, you know. But there was only 5 games that supported it, and the adapter itself was very expensive, and because the Sega Saturn was a failure, these things didn't take off. But the Sega Saturn pioneered a lot of things. It started off a lot of things like online gaming, video CDs and stuff. So it had all these awesome features on top of being a great games console. But it's not a perfect games console, and that's one of the main reasons why it failed, which I'll get into now in a minute. But yeah, it had all these features. You could get a keyboard or a mouse, and it become a PC essentially, which was awesome. So it had loads of games, accessories, features for a console that came out in 95 and it was finished in 1998. Only lasted 3 years because it was a huge failure. But in all that time, like, loads of great games managed to come out for it. You know what I mean? Which is awesome. And which is awesome. So like the system itself is awesome in my opinion, and I totally recommend it. So that's where the discs go. And the Sega Saturn, it was very reliable. You know what I mean? We've had mine for about 20 years nearly, and not a single thing has happened to it. So very sturdy, very well made. You know, in my opinion. Yeah. So the Sega Saturn has great sound. It has a processor dedicated just for sound. So the sound quality out of the Sega Saturn is awesome. It's a 2D powerhouse. It plays 2D games damn near perfect. You know, like Street Fighter Alpha, Guardian Heroes, awesome games. 2D games, awesome on the Sega Saturn. You know, but where it struggles is 3D. Doing 3D games is where the Sega Saturn struggles, and that's one of the main reasons why it failed. You know, because its competition was the Sony PlayStation and the N64. Now the Sony PlayStation could do 3D damn near perfect for the time, and a lot of developers were pushing 3D gaming big time, and the Sega Saturn just struggled at it, and it was harder to make games for the Sega Saturn. So a lot of developers says we're just going to stick with the Sony PlayStation. But not only was it harder to program games, so the reason why it was so hard to program games for is another reason why it failed. Sega, like I said, developed the Sega Saturn to be a 2D powerhouse, and they thought the future of gaming would be in 2D, but it wasn't. It was going towards 3D Sony made the right choice there. They knew 3D was the future, so they built their machine for 3D, whereas Sega didn't. But Sega saw the writing on the wall, they saw what Sony was doing and what developers were doing, and at the last minute they panicked. They had to do it. They put a second processor. There's already one processor in there for 2D, but they put a second one in there to do 3D. And programmers didn't have the ability, a lot of them didn't have the ability to program two CPUs at once. So, games don't use the Sega Saturn's full power. Some nearly do, but most of them don't. And because it's so hard to program for, many developers just ignore the second processing unit. So, like a lot of games like Wipeout, Destruction Derby, 3D games like this on the Sony PlayStation run perfectly, but in the Sega Saturn they struggle because the Saturn is just basically porting the PlayStation version onto the Sega Saturn. Now, a few developers did build their games from the ground up to make the most out of Sega Saturn. They exhumed Duke Nukem 3D, Quake by lobotomy software, you know. So I'll get onto the games and all that now in a minute, right? But I just want to finish off with the system. It's just a failure. Hard to program games for, but it had awesome games. You know, it has some great 3D games as well, but just not as many as the PlayStation. And yeah, so that's it for the system. I can't think of anything else to say. I'd highly recommend it. This is the Japanese Sega Saturn. Out of them all, this is the one I'd recommend. Yeah. One thing I forgot in the cartridge part. There's this thing called the Action Replay cartridge, which I'd highly recommend getting. You'll go to the cartridge part there, and not only does it add as a memory cartridge, but it makes the Saturn region free, so you can play games from America, Japan, anywhere, and they'll work on the Sega Saturn. So it's essentially that you get an Action Replay cartridge, you know. But in my opinion, I definitely get them. You know, I mean, they're dirt cheap. Now, another thing to take note of: the Japanese Sega Saturn runs at 100 volts, right? Whereas over here in Ireland and the UK, we have 240 volts. So if you are going to get a Japanese Sega Saturn, make sure you get a step down converter that will change the voltage from your wall from 240 volts to 100 volts. It's essential, because I made that mistake. Like I said, I have a JVC Sega Saturn, which is Japanese as well, and we forgot to get the step down converter. I plugged it into the wall and blew it up. my foolish me, I made a fucking mistake, you know. So yeah, that's just the way that is, you know. So yeah, so that's it for the system. I can't think of anything else to say. It plays music, CDs, everything. Now, in '95, you know, the Sega Saturn was released worldwide, North America, and over here in Europe, and they repainted it black. And this is the Model 1 Sega Saturn with the oval buttons, and you know, the window you can't see inside of, you know. Whereas the Japanese version is actually a Model 2 Sega Saturn. So yeah, we actually prefer the black. The white one is the best one to get, in my opinion. But the black one looks deadly. There's no Sega logo there, so it's just a few cosmetic changes with the lines and stuff like that. So take your pick. The Sega Saturn is still it's one of my favourite consoles. It looks cool. I think it looks the best out of most of my consoles. So like so that's pretty much it. Like everything else that this can do, the Japanese one can do. Same features, same everything. So that's it for the consoles. I have 5 of these. I'd highly recommend it. We'll get onto the games now in a minute. But like, I'll just end this part right now, and I'll talk this all later. I'll come up with a part 2, because it's going to take a few parts to cover all this, because I have so many games and so many things to talk about. So that's the end of this particular part. Just going over the system in general. In the next part, we'll go over why exactly the Sega Saturn failed and why it didn't do well. But it is still a great console, you know, for a console that lasted only 3 years. So yeah, I'm going to end this part right now, and I'll do a part 2 now in a few minutes. So thanks very much for watching. If you are watching, subscribe or leave comments if you want to. I believe I've covered everything about the system. So I'll see you in the next part. So take care and bye bye.